Je m'appelle Miles Morales. Je suis le seul et unique Spider-Man.
I mean, I think we started with adapting a comic book, and you know there are obviously there's a pre-existing language for superhero films on the big screen out there, and there have been many great Spider-Man movies previous to this one, and we just wanted to create something that was as unique and individual as Miles Morales. And so we just challenged ourselves every step of the way to try to not do anything that felt like you'd seen it before.
Alors tu veux devenir Spider-Man?
Vous pouvez m'apprendre?
Je peux faire ça. Place à la voltige.
Wow!
Bien, tu te débrouilles. Double clic pour libérer et whip. Tu relances.
Ça marche.
Balance.
Et je libère.
Pardon. Balance.
The inspiration literally was comic books. I mean, it was because this was an animated feature, because we knew we had to make it different, as Bob said, from, you know, any other Spider-Man movie you've seen. We decided, why not go back to the source? You know, why not, for the first time, try to use the graphic language of comic books in a cinematic way to tell the story of this new version of Spider-Man, so that everything about it was going to be different and new, and you know, it was something we felt we owed to the audience, who is, you know, you've seen other animated superhero movies, you've seen other Spider-Man movies. All of these, we have beautiful examples of all of these, but you know, why should anyone come to an animated Spider-Man movie? Well, hopefully this is why.
Yeah, and in a broader sense, we're trying to use comic books to create a stylized reality, you know? So comic books are a big inspiration, and then reality is a big inspiration. You know, the beginning of production, Bob and a production designer took a trip to New York and took a lot of beautiful, real photographs of New York City. And if you look at finished frames of our movie, they look an awful lot like those pictures, but delivered in a comic book world. So you know, and that goes for the story of the movie too. We're trying to find a marriage between stylization and naturalism.
Salut les garçons.
T'es qui toi?
Moi c'est Gwen Stacy.
I think you just have to be, you know, obviously there's a history that we're sort of obliged to follow, and it's a wonderful history. And I think, you know, our audience knows that history, and that ended up becoming a real sort of positive for us, because we could lean on that history to either oppose it or to support it in the same way, but for a new character. And so, I mean, that was really, that was the goal, was just to create a Spider-Man movie that felt like a Spider-Man movie. It had the same sort of feelings and scope of every Spider-Man movie you've ever seen, but was built through the lens of this 13-year-old kid who grew up in Brooklyn with a family and an uncle, and in a Brooklyn that is 2018, that is contemporary. You know?
Yeah, I think that's the key. You know, that the Spider-Man movies, they've always been about the person behind the mask. And if you have a character who's, you know, an ordinary person, somebody you can relate to, somebody you sort of fall in love with in a way, and you go on that adventure with them, the experience becomes much more personal. You know, you have someone to root for. We've got this complex, complicated idea of the Spider-Verse, which is a huge idea, but, you know, we're discovering that along with Miles. So the whole thing becomes hopefully a little more personal and emotional and relatable and fun.
Yeah, you start with the character. It all comes from the character and the challenge that they're facing. And then, you know, other Spider-Man, you know, things that we've built. I mean, there's a pop, very bold look to it. There's a sense of humor to Spider-Man that in the comics that we were trying to capture.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd challenge you to find a person on this planet that doesn't know who Peter Parker is, right? So how do you make them know who Miles Morales is? That was our challenge.
Monsieur l'agent, je t'aime.
Hein? Quoi? De ce côté, de ce côté. L'autre côté, l'autre côté, l'autre côté.